The people
Good
who are
point.
trying to hide something try to gaslight anybody who has any remote understanding of the truth, because the truth to a person who isn't a good person is something to be feared and frightened for, because, obviously the revelation of what was wrong is going to heal the injured person and injure the injurious person. So, of course, gaslighting is my favorite way to recognize who's desperate. And
Yeah.
usually desperate
Yep.
people
Oh,
will
it's
hurt
so
and harm
true.
another.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point.
Yep, it's you know what it is. Well, this is one of my favorite ideas of like the past couple years that I've run into is that it's my the philosopher that I've been reading, Metzinger, says that philosophy is the practice of the death of the self model, and that when you're supposed to shine light onto the what he calls the self model, basically just describing the situation. When you describe a situation, you're modeling it. You're saying, oh, this is what this is what that is. And a poem is a kind of model. It's a model of subjectivity, interiority, emotional, this kind of cognitive model. So, but just within a relationship, the reason why you communicate is that you're constantly modeling what it is and seeing how they're seeing it. So if in an abusive relationship, the reason why communication would destroy it is because you're modeling it. And once you can see it, then you can start manipulating, and not manipulating in the bad way, but you can start changing it. You can say, oh, as soon as you're aware of something existing within you, then of both your shared idea of what it is, your mapping of it, then you can start to change it. And then a lot of times that thing dies. Once you know something, and that's why in poems, a lot of times once it's resolved, if you can understand it completely, there's no openness to it. A lot of times the poem dies. There's no reason to read it again. You understand it completely. And the reason for that is, well, there's nothing more. And so it dies. So once you do understand a situation as abusive, when you can communicate with somebody, oh, this is what the problem is, very naturally it can be resolved if both parties are describing the problem and can see the problem and can just talk about it.
Yep.
Because you'll necessarily open, the way he describes it is you're opening the terrain of consciousness. So once you see once you basically, it's like thinking outside the box. Once you see the box, you can think outside the box.
That's a good quote. Damn.
Yeah, it's I think about it a lot. and it connects with what you're saying. Yeah. And in your poem, that's in your poem too, where the desire to come close and whisper these words with urgency, and it never came. Like there's already a communicative impasse.
Telephone.
Right. That's the hallmark of an abuser, is that they don't want to face the truth. They don't want to change, and if you challenge them, they see it as a threat and not as a challenge to become better. Doesn't matter how you say I love you, I love you, I love you. It doesn't matter, because those words mean nothing to them, because they don't love themselves enough to change and become better and see themselves as the amazing person they really are. Everyone has so much potential, but if we don't choose to realize our own potential, then we are nothing.
Yeah, you know what it is to me? It's a cowardice. You run away. If particularly if you're in a situation that is committed, that has something on the line, and if the other person comes to you and says, like, look, we got to talk about this, or like, look, I'm seeing these things, these problems, like we, blah, 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 blah. And then they run away. That to me is exactly right. You don't love like you have your own issues that you have to work on. And maybe, the problem is that is being brought up is so deep that you're not ready to confront it, and everybody has their own time to confront something. But to believe in your own strength, like to have a kind of intellectual honesty. One of the things I love about poetry is like anything that you're working through, you can actually try to shine a light on it and make it, the act of trying to make it into something beautiful.
Seriously.
is so therapeutic. Yes. And that's the reason why we do it. And that's why it's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it gets away from that, if like you're doing art in order to like make money or something or to impress people, like that's when you kind of get away from that and it doesn't seem as genuine. But I feel like with poetry already has a defense against like the disingenuous, because like
Word.
it's not commercial. Like it's
Word.
so hard to make money off of it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, man, you hit it on the head. Shit.
Yeah. I mean, for me anyways, I was very I went to film school, and so film is like very moneyed. It's, you know, it takes a lot of money to do it, and there's a lot of money in it, and there's a lot of ego. And I feel like pivoting to poetry, like I can see that the difference between the two mediums.
We're the
much clearer.
outcasts, man.
Yeah, we are the outcasts, and that's one of the strengths of the minds too.
Facts.
You know, like we're still here even as the site is kind of, you know, declining in interest, you know, or just going through a slump. You know, there's going to be ups and downs, you know, but you know, the reason why we're still here is because, you know, we have, you know, something more real to offer. Offer ourselves.
There's a lot of things going on that none of you are aware of.
Interesting. Like what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What did you say?
I said there's a lot of things going on that a lot of us are unaware of. So I'm sure there are aspects, higher intelligences with not great interests that are involved. So yeah, it's not just us, of course.
I goddamn hope so. I
Yeah.
goddamn hope so.
Poetry is a great way for communicating on the subconscious level because those messages are very complex.
Yes,
Good shit.
absolutely. 100%. Man, I got just to take a break, just to like veer it away from. I mean, thank you, Rose, for reading it. I feel like we're kind of getting off of your poem, if that's okay. But like speaking of complexity, the prompt that I wrote for you guys, and seeing the kind of responses for this prompt,
Amazing.
it's incredible to me. The complexity involved. It's just been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal to see, and it reaffirms my faith in poetry, that poetry does have a way to handle complexity in a very kind of unique way. And like blockchain and crypto is very mathematical, it's very engineer focused. So like it was kind of a stretch to say, okay, we're going to be writing poems about this. But you know, it's cool that poetry has the ability to process domestic abuse, and it also has the ability to process some wild new technology that we're all, you know, witnessing. Like it's talk about complexity, man, you know. Maybe even too complex to talk about, you know. I'm going to start like, you know, we can't live stream about this. This is something to think about and put in a poem. Like, this is terrible.
It's nice
Yeah,
to
I mean,
hear other
the
people
other day
that
we were
like
reading
do this
Pluto
for their
Jason's
own
poem.
sake. You know what I mean? Like, it's so therapeutic. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the best thing in the world. Like I always tell people, like, you know, I don't feel like I really have a real opinion on anything until I've written a song about it. You know, it's like you've got 3 verses, you've got 2 choruses, and you got to figure out how you feel about an issue and write about it. And you want to get the whole feeling across, right? So it's just a nice way to organize your thoughts.
Yeah. Man, I like that. I don't know what I really feel about something until I write a poem. I love that. And you know what? It's you know, it's when you write a poem, like that's imprinted inside you.
Yeah.
You know, there's a feedback process in which, you know, like, you know, it's real because you put it out there and it stays there and it's still resonant to you.
Hell yeah.
Word.
I got a question for your future. So when you write songs, do you write the lyrics before you write the song, or do you write do you like, you know, as far as the instrumentation goes?
I'm usually a song. I start with the instrumentation usually, and then I will have a melody that will form, and then I try to match the words to the melody. I do it I think a lot of guys do it the other way around.
Right. Yeah. I think there's something to that. How about you, for everybody writing poetry? Do you key into the feeling first, or do you key into the ideas? Do you like write it down and like then try to like figure out how you feel about it, or do you feel it first and then kind of source your poetry from that?
That's a good question. I'd love to hear that.
It's a bomb ass question. Where, yeah, I mean, considering how I write, it's normally, so I guess kind of semblant to what Future said. It's more of like the moment, capturing, like being in the moment, and then from the moment I capture something from that moment. So it'd be like, making the beat first, like living the life, having the experience,
Yeah.
and then capturing the moment. Like that's how it works for me. I always make the beat first. The beat is like my movement, and then through the movement, I'm like, okay, I can melodize. I could do a melody off of this chord, this type of idea. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, that's my input.
That's a great metaphor for writing. I mean, it's thoughts and feelings and all these things, and you start having this experience, and it starts becoming real, and all of a sudden you're like, it starts solidifying, and you're starting to see the words and the actual real images, and it's starting to make you really get excited, and you're like, okay, and like we were talking about earlier, it's time to write this down.
Word up.
Yeah, that whirring feeling, like the system's up and running,
Yeah, and this last poem I wrote, it was just that I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, just something came over me, something clicked, and I started having really good thoughts, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna sit down and write, and then it just folded out onto the paper. It was amazing.
Love that.
Word.